team, and we ain't smell the playoffs. Then it gets even better when your team makes the playoffs.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to NFL Playoff Wildcard Weekend here on the Louie T Network. AFC Wildcard Overtime. Colts, Texans. Your man Louie T is 1 for 1 in my playoff predictions, as I gave you the Colts as the winner of this football game. And this game kind of went the way that I thought it was going to go, except for the dominance showed in the first half. I thought the game would look more like it did in the second half, minus the Colts kind of bogging things down a bit. I thought the Colts pretty much sat on the lead. They weren't as aggressive in the second half as they were in the first half. Now, I thought the Texans were a little bit more aggressive defensively out of necessity in the second half of this game, because in the first half, they just thought they could rush, and Andrew Luck was protected. There was a brick wall in front of him, as it was for most of the season, and there was zero pressure on him. He was comfortable, and he carved them up in the first half. They didn't punt once in the first half, and if not for a batted ball that was picked off and the clock running out before halftime, this game could have really gotten out of control in the first half. But as it was, it ended up being 21-0 at the halftime break. And really, the Texans had opportunities right before the half and even in the second half to narrow this margin. I'm not a Bill O'Brien fan. I didn't think he did a great job coaching in this game. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But let's look at the keys to victory. I talked about this on the prediction video that I had and the keys to victory video. And let's take a look at the keys to victory for this game. And let's see how these things played out. So we start with the Colts and my keys to the victory. Run the ball effectively. Check. Marlon Mack, 24 carries, 148 yards. The first running back to go over 100 yards on this Texans defense this season. And a touchdown for Marlon Mack in this game. He was outstanding and a huge part of the reason why the Colts were able to win this football game. Limit the mistakes. I talked about the Colts, and I said Andrew Luck's going to turn it over once. That's in his DNA. He's going to throw at least one interception in this game. And he wasn't really erratic today. Though I thought he threw some excellent balls, including one that didn't actually amount to anything later in the game on a third down. I thought that was uber aggressive on the part of Luck on a 3rd and 5 to chuck it 35 yards down the field or so to T.Y. Hilton on the money. They ultimately ended up punting, but that was a great catch and a great throw by Luck. But they limited the mistakes. The batted balls were an issue. There could have been more interceptions if some of those batted balls had been located by some Texans defenders, but nonetheless, they limited the mistakes. They didn't fumble. I talked about Eric Ebron not dropping the ball. He did have a drop. I knew that was going to come at some point. He didn't secure that football, got hit by the safety, Justin Reed, and the ball came out. That should have been another touchdown there, but nonetheless, this Colts team limited the mistakes. No fumbles, nothing crazy. So they took care of the football for the most part. Make Watson beat you and don't get nuked. Watson, they made him beat it. They didn't allow the Texans to run the football and be balanced. They forced Deshaun Watson to beat them. And you saw what happened. He was skipping balls like Donovan McNabb out there. He didn't look comfortable in the pocket at times. He wanted to use his legs. And so he missed some opportunities, missed some throws. And they didn't get nuked. Nuke didn't look right. He looked banged up. But give some credit to the French assassin, Pierre Desir, a guy that I liked coming into the league out of the draft when he was drafted by the Cleveland Browns. I like the French assassin then. I like him even more now. Love his length. I thought he did a great job neutralizing DeAndre Hopkins. But again, Nuke did not look right, but no excuses here. You play, then you need to perform and give the Colts credit for taking him out of the football game. T.Y. Hilton has to show up, not Eugene Hilton. T.Y. showed up today, 5 catches, 85 yards. He was huge. 5 catches, 4 of which were for third down conversions. So he was monstrous in this football game. He showed up big time. He was called a clown. He wore the clown mask. He showed up and backed up his trash talk with his play on the field. And be aggressive, not over aggressive. There really weren't many instances in this game where a tough decision had to be made by head coach Frank Reich. We've seen him be a little over-aggressive like he was against Jacksonville in the 6-0 loss. We saw him be over-aggressive the first time you played this Texans team when you lost in overtime. There weren't many big decisions to be made in this game, so that one wasn't necessarily brought up in this game. But I thought the Colts pretty much checked off all of the keys to victory, and that's why they won the game. Versus, you look at the Texans' keys to victory, good defense stand up. In the first half, that defense was non-existent. And really, in the second half, I thought the Colts pretty much just was looking to hang on to a lead. They weren't looking to do, because the Texans didn't put a lot of pressure on them by scoring points. They felt like, we just don't need to do anything stupid here. Let's just continue to just run clock, and if we got to punt, pin them deep, make them go the length of the football field and eat up more clock. And so I didn't think the defense was that good today. You gave up over 100 yards rushing. Andrew Luck was comfortable all day. You didn't really sack him and pressure him until late in the second half. There aren't many keys that they hit here, and the defense didn't stand up, and they had to stand up. I told you, you weren't going to win a shootout, and so the defense did not stand up, especially in the first half. Watson in total control. I thought Watson did a great job in the second half of using his legs, but in the first half of this game, he looked a little flustered. He was under duress. I give Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator of the Colts, a lot of credit for using that corner blitz, that slot blitz on both sides, coming with the cornerback more time and time again to really make Deshaun Watson uncomfortable in the pocket. And Watson missed a lot of open receivers in this football game. I thought the biggest miss of the game was to the tight end that won on an off-schedule route. When he gets to the outside, there is not a Colt defender in sight. If Watson can somehow lay that in there over the top, and really, he should have put air on that football instead of throwing it on the line. He missed the tight end, and that essentially was the big shot opportunity. That would have been a touchdown if he gets that football in there. Instead, it's incomplete, and Watson was low all day, missed too many guys that were open. He was not in total control. Nuclear bomb, tight end du jour, Kiki, do you hear me? None of these things planned out except for Kiki. Do you hear me? He heard me loud and clear. He stepped up, but Nuke was not himself, and the tight ends were a non-factor in this game. Some of it their fault, but a lot of it Deshaun Watson not getting them the football when they were open. But Kiki QT was outstanding in this game. He was the only guy that really showed up as a skill player for the Texans. Take advantage of opportunities. You didn't take advantage of opportunities. You picked off Andrew Luck, and even though it was deep in your own territory, you needed to do something there. That was a momentous turn for you potentially, and you did nothing but go 3 and out after that interception. You drove the football into Colts territory, and you throw a pick. You didn't take advantage of that opportunity. You get down there right before the half, a chance to score some points. I didn't have a problem with Bill O'Brien going for it on 4th down. I thought that I was really hoping that they didn't get close, because remember, it was 3rd and like 14, and then they complete a 13-yard pass. I was really hoping it would end up being like 4th and 7. You don't go for it in that situation. You kick the field goal. The game wasn't over at 21-3. You didn't have to. Jason Witten and Booger McFarland made it seem like the game was over at 21-0. It's the first half. You still got 2 whole quarters. 3 scores is not insurmountable. Field goal was a good play there, but I didn't have a problem with it. It was 4th and 1. Had it been 4th and 7 and they went for it, but I didn't like the play call. We'll get to that a little bit later on. But in any event, you didn't take advantage of opportunities. You did not take advantage of opportunities in this football game. And that was a huge part of the reason why you lost. And finally, be balanced, red zone efficiency. I talked about the struggles in the red zone for this Texans team all season long. It bit them in their ass once again today. That lack of scoring in the first half, at the end of the first half, when they had to score there, they had to come away with something for a momentum purpose. They got nothing on that drive. That one stung big time. And so the red zone efficiency, remember we talked about that in the Week 5 win against the Cowboys, how bad they were in the red zone. They've been bad this season in the red zone, and it bit them again today. Be balanced. I didn't have a problem with the play calling in terms of run, pass, balance. When you get down 3 scores in the first half, essentially in the first 20 minutes of the game, it kind of takes the run game out of the equation somewhat. So being balanced kind of was taken off the table once you drop down 21-0 in the first half of this football game. But in any event, I thought that the keys to the victory were huge, and the Colts checked off just about every box. Meanwhile, the Texans failed to do so, and that's why the Colts came out victorious 21-7 in this football game. So as you get to a quick analysis, I don't want to keep you here too much longer than I need to because, you know, the Cowboys game is at 8:15, so I want to make sure I get you there on time and get to some of your comments. Essentially, the Colts went out. They had a game plan. Andrew Luck was outstanding in this football game. I thought he was pinpoint accurate. The offensive line may have been the stars of this football game, especially in the first half, because Andrew Luck was protected so well. He had so much time to scan the football field. There were times where he'd pump, and then he would look at another read, and then he would deliver the football after a second pump. I mean, he had so much time in the pocket. It was ridiculous. Marlon Mack was outstanding. That was a guy that I loved coming out of South Florida. Wanted my Redskins to draft him, and you saw why. You saw the patience tonight. You saw the cutback ability. You saw the tough in between the tackles running, which is what a lot of people thought Marlon Mack couldn't do in college. And I said the guy can run in between the tackles. And then you saw him. Once he gets out of space, he's dangerous as well. He was outstanding in this football game. I thought the receivers showed up. A lot of people like to dismiss these Colts receivers. They don't have another guy after T.Y. Hilton. Well, guys stepped up today, including Dontrell Inman, who was huge in the first half of this football game. The Texans secondary got undressed by Dontrell Inman and T.Y. Hilton, and even a little sprinkle of Ebron and John Pascal. So they struggled, did the Texans in the secondary, and give credit to that Colts offensive line for giving Andrew Luck the time he needed to scan the field, find the right read, and get the football to them in a timely manner. Andrew Luck, like I said, extremely accurate in this football game. Hilton showed up in a major way, and they were outstanding offensively in the first half. They couldn't be stopped. 5 possessions, no punts, and if not for an interception that was batted up in the air and running out of time to end the first half, they would have scored probably on every single possession in the first half of this game. Meanwhile, the defense, Matt Eberflus, I thought he was outstanding today. And I watched this Colts team all season long, and they play a bend but don't break defense. Cover 2 is essentially that much. You want to keep everything in front of you. You want to make teams go 13 plays. And a lot of teams aren't capable. You heard Bill O'Brien tell the Monday Night Crew, look, we're not a 16-play offense, and most teams aren't, for that matter. It's hard to go 16 plays and not have a holding penalty, not have a ball batted in the air and have an incompletion and put you behind down and distance. It's hard to go the length of the field on a 13-play drive. A lot of teams aren't built to do that. The Texans are one of those teams that can't get out of their own way. So you want to keep teams from having explosive plays. The Colts did that in this game. They made the Texans earn everything that they got. And what I was most impressed with was the fact that in the first half of this game, it was 3 and out after 3 and out. There was no continuity, no consistency, no fluidity with this Texans offense. And the credit must be given to Matt Eberflus and that Colts defense. I thought that cover 2 was great. I thought him blitzing off the slot with Moore was outstanding. I love the twist and the stunts. The Colts have been doing that all season long. I love the fact that they were able to stop the run early and set that precedence in the game. Like, you're not going to run the football on us today, and force Deshaun Watson to beat you, which was one of my keys to the game, and they executed that beautifully. And the defense was just as big as a part of the win in the first half and getting out to that lead as the offense was, because if the defense was giving up points or even possessions where the Texans were able to move the football and then have to punt or settle for a field goal, the Colts offensively wouldn't have been able to get into the rhythm that they were able to get into. They would score a touchdown, 3 and out, get the football back, score another touchdown, 3 and out, get the football back, and be able to go on another drive. So the defense was outstanding in this game. Not just the first half. They got crucial stops, a 4th down stop. I did not like the play call. We'll get to that in a second. At the end of the first half, they got to stop there. They got another 4th down stop late in the game on a slot blitz by Moore again, and he took Lamar Miller and walked him back into Deshaun Watson and made that football incomplete pass. They were aggressive defensively. Darius Leonard, never, ever trust a man with 2 first names, continues to be a stud. He almost had an interception late in the game. And so they were outstanding defensively. We got to talk more about this Colts defense because they were lights out in this football game. You go to the Texans side of things. You got to start it on the defensive side. I thought that's where this game was lost. They had ample opportunity in the second half to do things on the offensive side of the football, but for me, you couldn't allow the Colts to jump out to the way the lead the way that they did early in this football game. I mean, you didn't have a shot before you blinked twice. It was 21-0, and the defense, little to no resistance in the first half of this game. And again, if not for a deflected pass, it's probably 28 or 24. At worst, it's 28. If you're the Colts, at worst, it's 24 because Adam Vinatieri is going to attack on a field goal. You were already in field goal range. I mean, the fact that you couldn't get any stops and the third down conversions were backbreakers, and you knew T.Y. Hilton was the guy you wanted to go to, and you consistently allowed them to run those crossing routes. That's what the Colts do. If you watch tape, if you watch film, in third down situations, they love to run those underneath crossing routes. They love to run pick routes. You got to play zone coverage against those. You can't play man. They consistently tried to play man. The Colts ate them up. Ebron had a nice first half. So did Hilton and Inman. And the defense had no answers. They didn't get pressure. There was no Jadeveon Clowney. There was no Watt, no siding of Merciless or anybody. None of those guys got even remotely close to Andrew Luck. Again, give credit to that offensive line of the Indianapolis Colts. Then you go to the offensive side of the football, and I just thought that Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson weren't in sync with one another. I thought the play calling was average at best. Watson was not his best today. A lot of balls hitting the ground. If you watch the ball come out of his hand, it had that downward spiral to it, and it was going down. It was dying before it got to receivers. He was missing guys that were open, including Ryan Griffin, like I talked about earlier, when he was open on a route where he pretty much broke it off, ran it outside, beat the linebacker, and had 6. If Watson could have put a little bit of air on that. But I thought the biggest possession of the first half for the Texans wasn't the interception. That was a bad decision by Watson. A great job of baiting him by Moore, who had an exceptional game. But it was the missed opportunity, 4th and 1, and I really wanted that to be 4th and 7 because I didn't even want Bill O'Brien because I knew he was dumb enough to go for it. But again, I'm not going to kill him for that because at that moment, 4th and 1, it wasn't the decision that I didn't like. It was the play calling. You go empty on 4th and 1, and that's what the NFL has evolved into, where teams get cute on 4th and 1. You got Deshaun Watson. I wanted them to run it, first of all, but not in the traditional sense. I wanted them to run read option. I thought Booger McFarland said it best. Run read option here. All right, you line up and you give him a two-way go. If that end pinches down, Watson pulls it, you get a blocker out in front and Ryan Griffin and you go. Much faster than slow. If they don't come down and pinch down, you hand it off, you pick up the first down, you got plenty of time, it's 1:20 left, you got 2 timeouts. That was a dumb play call because what them spreading them out and going empty did was it allowed them to even drop an extra defender in Marcus Hunt, a 6'8" defender right in the middle of the field, which made that throw by Watson somewhat errant because you got this big-ass defender in the middle of the field that shouldn't be there, but because it was empty, there was no threat of run, so he was able to drop. It was just a bad play call, but that's what Bill O'Brien does. That's why they struggle in the red zone because he outsmarts himself way too often. And not getting any points there was so crucial because what that basically did was keep you down 3 scores. What it did was it took away all the momentum that you gained by moving the football there, and you got the football after the half. I would much rather them kick a field goal there. And even if they would have kicked the field goal there, who's to say that they don't give up a field goal themselves at the end of the half because the Colts moved it right down the field afterwards. But maybe the momentum would have switched. If you kick a field goal, you got a little bit of momentum there. You get the ball after halftime. Let's say you go down, you kick another field goal. Now all of a sudden, it's a 2-score game. That's why I didn't understand the panic. Like, you got to go for it. You didn't have to. There's a lot of time left in the game. And the Colts didn't score another point. Now, you didn't know they weren't going to score another point. And the way they moved it in the first half, you probably felt in the moment, like, we got to score a touchdown because we can't stop them defensively. But again, I just thought there was too much panic at that time in that juncture of the game. But in any event, again, I don't love Bill O'Brien as a coach. You know how I feel about Bill O'Brien. And I thought he showed his ass in this game at times. And I thought that was a porous play call. But that's what he's done all season long. That's why I talked about red zone efficiency being one of the keys to victory. And you saw it rear its ugly head there. They haven't been good in the red zone all season long. You saw it again. And you saw why. Poor play calling by Bill O'Brien, and Nuke not being 100% didn't help them in this football game either. But I digress. Big win for the Colts. Now they head to Kansas City to take on the #1 seeded Chiefs in Arrowhead. That should be a fun game. Let's get to your comments. Colts fan says, what did I tell you, Lou? We are dangerous, and we ain't done yet. I said you were going to win the game. I think you're very dangerous. I don't know how dangerous you are. We're going to find out just how dangerous you are because that Chiefs offense, they're going to eat that cover 2 alive. And I'm anxious to see Patrick Mahomes and that offense go against your defense. Your offense is going to tear their defense to shreds. So that's going to be a fun game. That's going to be in the 30s, high 20s, low 30s. And I think that's going to be a fun game to watch. Colts fan also says, I don't think we will win in Kansas City, but we will have a shot because we limit the big play. I agree. I don't think you're going to win that game either, just off of first blush. I'll take a look and examine some things and see, maybe watching some tape and watching some of these games from the season and going back and rewatching them, because I watched every game, rewatching it. Maybe I'll see some things that I think, you know, one or the other team may be able to exploit, and maybe I'll change my mind. But right now, first blush, I think the Chiefs have the upper hand, but I think you do have a shot because your offense can move the football on their defense. Colts fan says, I love Deshaun Watson, but he needs to make those throws in the pocket. He was just off today. Some of that was playoff jitters. He hasn't been here before, and that's why I went against all of the teams with quarterbacks playing their first postseason game. Mahomes doesn't really count for me, but I went against Deshaun Watson. I went against Lamar Jackson. I don't like these quarterbacks making their first postseason start. There's something to that. There's a little bit of extra nerves that come with making your first postseason shot. We'll see, though. Colts fan says, how about Mac attack, though? He's legit. I love Marlon Mack. If you go back and watch when the Colts drafted him, I talked about how obsessed I was with that Colts draft. Mack was one of the reasons why. There's another guy in that draft that I thought would be better than what he has been to this point. He's a non-factor, as a matter of fact. The edge rusher out of Ohio, I thought he was going to be Terrell Basham. I thought he was going to be really good. I must have just whiffed on that one. But Mack was another guy that I was madly in love with the way he plays the game. Thought he was going to be a star in this league, and it looks like he's proving me right to this point. Storm says, Watson was off this game. You think it was just playoff nerves for a young quarterback? Exactly. I said that just a few minutes ago, and that's exactly what I attributed that to. I just think he was nervous. His first playoff game, there were jitters there. He was nervous. It was a big stage, bright lights, and normally Watson steps up in those situations, but this one was a little much for him. Enrique Valencia says, Marlon Mack is legit. By the way, the Texans are so annoying with all the batted balls. Yeah, they are dangerous with those batted balls, because I thought there was another one or two of those that could have easily been picked off if guys would have located the football, but they just didn't know where it went. So that's what they do. The Watt swats the ball. They call him JJ Swat for a reason. One hit off the helmet of a blitzing linebacker on one play. They know how to get their hands on the football. It's just what they do. Pepe, the YouTuber, says, can Bob please be fired? Watson deserves better. I agree. You know how I feel about Bill O'Brien. I've already said it many times. I'm not a fan of Billy O. He needs to go much faster than slow, but it seems like they have some kind of affinity for Bill O'Brien. I don't know why. I don't love him, but we'll see what happens. I don't see him going anywhere because he wins. And for as much as I don't like Bill O'Brien, he wins. Storm says, Colts better deliver versus the Chiefs. A Chiefs loss is one thing I know how to enjoy every year. Hopefully Mahomes chokes as is tradition. I'm going to tell you this much. My uncle is a huge Chiefs fan. He has zero confidence in the Chiefs' ability to win in the postseason, and that hasn't changed this year because he doesn't have any confidence in their defense. So, again, the Colts will have a legitimate shot. Why? Because the Chiefs are so bad on defense. Boy says Texans can only beat the Bengals and the Raiders in the playoffs. So sad. Isn't that so true? They used to play the Bengals, it seemed like every year. They would beat them barely, and they would have some bum quarterback in there, and they would find a way to win, and then they beat the Raiders. In another year, put it this way, the Texans can only win when a team has a backup quarterback or a bum at quarterback. They beat Andy Dalton once, and that was young Andy that really didn't know what the hell was going on. But they've beaten some bad quarterbacks in the postseason. Enrique Valencia says, you see Quentin Nelson ending Clowney's life with that nasty pancake with a little bit of syrup on top. You know I love it. That's my guy. Golden Domer out there doing work. I talked about Quentin Nelson. I said, look, he's not going to get any consideration for Offensive Rookie of the Year, although he should. But you're not going to see an offensive lineman win the award because there isn't any tangible stats that you can look at and say, hey, he's got this. Whereas with receivers and backs, there's an easy way to quantify their impact on the game. So he's not going to win it because he's an offensive lineman, but I already told you the dude is nasty. Every GM talked about this guy being a 12-year all-pro in this league, the kind of guy that changes the level of play on your offensive line and the level of maturity in your locker room. He's a leader. Love Quentin Nelson. Plays with an edge. He did at Notre Dame. He's doing it now. I'm not surprised one bit by the way this guy is playing the game, because this is what I knew he was capable of, because this is what he did at Notre Dame. And so, yeah, I saw the pancake, extra syrup on top. Yeah, I saw that. Pancake was filthy. It was nasty. John Perez says, Andrew Luck for Comeback Player of the Year. Hell to the yes. I talked about that a month and a half ago on my podcast, that Andrew Luck. I said, can we give Andrew Luck Comeback Player of the Year already? That was done. That was in the bag a month and a half ago. Colts fan says, I don't think we've ever seen the transformation of our line has taken this season. I talked about, if you go back and watch my offseason videos, I talked about the Chris Ballard transformation that this team was going under. And I said, remember when you guys purged the roster of all these veteran players, you got rid of all of these guys, and everyone was scratching their head like, what are the Colts doing? I said, he's revamping this roster, and he's building it in his own image. And I knew he was capable because he built the Kansas City Chiefs roster. He was the mastermind behind that. A lot of people will argue it was the general manager that is now in Cleveland that built that roster. I will tell you that it was Chris Ballard that was the mastermind behind the Chiefs' construction of their roster. And I knew he could come in and do the same thing in Indy, and he has done exactly that. I thought Braden Smith was an outstanding selection. I didn't think he would be this good at tackle. I thought he would be an exceptional guard. But I said during the draft, until he proves to you he can't play tackle, put him at tackle. They put him at guard initially. Injuries forced him to move him out to tackle. He's been exceptional for them out there. I knew what Quentin Nelson was going to be. The only question with your left tackle, Costanza, has always been, can Anthony Costanzo stay healthy? If he can stay healthy, he's been a rock on that left side for you. And you just filled in the rest of those blanks. Ryan Kelly, we all loved him out of Alabama a couple of years ago when you drafted him in the first round. So we saw this coming. If guys panned out, they did, and all of a sudden this offensive line goes from one of the worst last year to one of the best this season. Colts fan says, this is why your team is unsuccessful. Y'all don't have a franchise quarterback. I agree. It starts with the quarterback position. Everyone knows that quarterback is the most important position, not just in the NFL, but in professional sports. RG3 hashtag said, the Chiefs should be worried, to be honest. Look, they should be, because this Colts offense is confident right now, and the Chiefs defensively don't scare anyone. The 20th Mike says the Colts came from 1-5 to a deadly team. How did that happen to be the worst to one of the best? I predicted the Colts would win the division this year. I was off on that, but everybody laughed at me when I said the Colts would win double-digit games this season. I said Andrew Luck, and remember, we didn't know what Andrew Luck we were going to get, and I said Andrew Luck's not only going to come back, he's going to shred the league, and he's going to lead this team to the playoffs, and he's going to win the division. I was wrong about the division, but I was right about them winning double-digit games, making it to the postseason, and Andrew Luck coming back and shredding the league, and he's done exactly that. Buffalo pregame says Colts will beat the Chiefs. Watch it. Colts fan says, how about Kenny Moore? Dude is amazing. Kenny Moore was the all-star, the MVP of the defensive side of the football. If there's a game ball to be given out on the defensive side of the football, it's Kenny Moore, and then it's Pierre Desir, the French assassin, Pierre Desir. But Kenny Moore was everywhere. He was blitzing, had the pick, reading the eyes of Deshaun Watson and stepping in front of that offering early in the game. That was a big play. At that time, Texas were going for points on that possession. Kenny Moore was everywhere. He was ubiquitous in this football game. Colts fan says, I sure hope Eberflus bombs his coaching interviews. We need to keep him on the squad. He's a guy that, and watching tonight's performance, he's going to gain even more traction. And with other teams, they're going to want to interview him. Not just the Browns now. More teams are going to want to interview Matt Eberflus after the performance we saw tonight. Colts fan says, who are you rooting for in the Dallas-Seattle game? Honestly, I'm just rooting for a good game. As a Redskins fan, you expect me to root for the Seahawks. Honestly, yeah, I would like to see the Seahawks beat the Cowboys, but I'm not rooting for anyone. I'm just rooting for a good game. I picked Dallas to win, so it really doesn't matter to me who wins the game. I just want to see a good football game. Stevie D says, that ass whooping was worse than the score indicated. It felt that way in the first half. In the second half, it felt like much more of a competitive football game. I felt like it was going to be 28, and I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't think the Kiki QT touchdown was a touchdown. I thought that was a fumble. Should have been a touchback. I thought they got away with one there, if you want me to be honest with you. Colts fan says, when on earth will the Texans address the cornerback position? They've been running from that for a while. Remember, they did draft Johnson out of Wake Forest. He didn't turn out to be the guy that they thought. They were supposed to pass the baton to him. He was supposed to be manning up the cornerback position for them right now, and he didn't turn out to be the guy that they thought he was going to be. So, you know, sometimes that affects you when you draft a guy in the first round and he doesn't pan out. It sets you back at that position a good 3 or 4 years. So that kind of knocked them off their track a little bit. If he was good right now, he'd be out there starting for them, not Jonathan Joseph. And so, you know, and Joseph may not even be the problem because he wasn't the one that really got worked today. It was more of Jackson, Kareem Jackson, that got worked in this game. But, you know, it is what it is. Atlas says, what are the chances that Matt Eberflus becomes a hot name if and when the Colts exit the playoffs for a coaching spot? You saw the performance. They highlighted him during the telecast. You saw the Colts do what they did. And really, the Colts have been really solid defensively all season long. He's going to gain traction and steam, especially if they go out and they play well. Even if they don't beat Kansas City, but they hold them to, let's say, 24 points in a victory or a loss, he's going to gain a lot of attention, I think, through this postseason. K. Michael says, or K. Michelle, excuse me, says, who would you vote for? Eric Ebron, comeback player of the year? I really think it's Andrew Luck, and I don't think it's another player to really discuss. He also says, I also felt that Luck stood tall in the pocket as Watt and crew were breathing down his neck. I didn't think they were even close to breathing down his neck, especially not in the first half. Redskin Nation says, Chiefs don't want to see Indy next week. It's going to be a fun game. K. Michelle says, the Colts front office hasn't gotten the credit they deserve. They definitely injected quality talent this past offseason. I talked about this in the offseason. I really did. Talked about it on my website, made a couple of videos, talked about what the transformation. I called it the Chris Ballard transformation, and you saw it firsthand. And again, it doesn't surprise me. Chris Ballard has been great at identifying talent and selecting players, and this goes back to his Kansas City Chiefs days. We got 2 minutes left before the Cowboys-Seahawks get underway, so I'll take the rest of these comments. Angry Birds of Chaos says, my Texans need a new play caller on offense and defense. O'Brien is a good coach as a leader of guys, but his play calling is horrible, and Cornell isn't much better. If you like him as a leader of men, I have no problems with that. I can't stand him as a play caller either. I just don't love him. I don't love his he's somewhat arrogant. I think his arrogance is off-putting to me, at least. But again, I'm not in the locker room. If the players love him, cool. They do need to find someone else to call plays because I think he is not very good at that. If you're drafting for my Texans, what position are you going after in the first round, corner or tackle? I think you got to protect your investment in Deshaun Watson. I think you could find a quality corner in the second, third, fourth round. You got to do your homework there, but I think you've got to find a way to get better protection up front for Deshaun Watson. I feel like there's too many instances where he's running for his life. He got sacked a ton. Some of those sacks are on him, all right? Not making the proper reads, not identifying where the pressure is coming from, sliding protection, holding on to the football too long. But at the end of the day, I think you need better guys in front of him. So I think the answer would be to draft a tackle. Dead Boy Life says, who do you like, Colts at Chiefs? You'll have to watch my prediction video later on in the week. That's going to be coming up around the Wednesday portion of the week, so stay tuned for that. I thank everyone for joining me. Let's check out this Cowboys-Seahawks game. We'll come back and break that one down at the conclusion here on the Louie T Network. Remember, if it's not your man T, it's not the best NFL coverage. It could be. Colts dominate the Texans 21-7, 21 unanswered points in the first half, cruise to a 21-7 victory. They advance to the divisional round where they will take on the number 1 seeded Kansas City Chiefs. I'm your man Louie T, signing off. I'll see you a little bit later on. Enjoy Seahawks at Cowboys. I'll see you at the conclusion of that game.
Louie T.